Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Hello and welcome to Political Exchange with me, Parikshit Luthra. Tonight, our special focus is on the Pakistan election. It's an election which is historic. It's important in more ways than one. And the Indian government is watching this election very, very closely. And this may, in fact, affect our bilateral ties as well. Remember, this is only the second time in Pakistan's history that power is being transferred to another civilian government. Remember, for the last 71 years, Pakistan has seen a coup-ridden history. There have been several dictatorships. Now, this is an election campaign that has been fraught with bitterness and allegations of military interference. Pakistan has gone to polls today. 106 million voters will decide their new provincial assemblies, parliament, and a new prime minister as well. The election coverage, though, has been overshadowed by violent attacks throughout the country, including a suicide bombing in Quetta that has left 31 people dead and many more injured. The election is being seen as a two-horse race between PTI's Imran Khan and PMLN's Shehbaz Sharif, the brother of former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. Many small parties are hoping to play a kingmaker in case of a hung parliament. Let's get in our guest this evening. We're joined by former Indian diplomat K.C. Singh. We've got Shailesh Kumar, who's the director, Asia region of the Eurasia Group. We also are joined by Raza Ahmad Rumi, who is the editor of Daily Pakistan. And we're also joined by senior journalist Gul Bukhari. I wonder if we can go across to Raza Ahmad first. Raza, what do you feel about the election gone by? 31 people killed in Quetta. A polling agent has been kidnapped. Violence in other parts of the country. Reports of rigging that have also taken place. And let's not forget, on the 13th of July, there was a massive terror attack in which more than 130 people were killed.
Yeah, unfortunately, has been marred by the pre-poll violence in different parts of the country. And however, considering that Pakistan has been battling, different terrorists in the country, this was not entirely unexpected because, there have been many wins and there have been losses across the line. But as regards the polling day is concerned in most of the country, by and large, the polls went far more smoothly than many observers were anticipating in Pakistan.
Right. Raza, stay with us. Those are important points that you're making. And the violence that we're seeing on our screens, the kind of tension we saw in Quetta, the terrible terror attack that claimed 31 lives is really dominating all international headlines. I'd like to get in Shailesh Kumar here as well. Shailesh, there has been a lot of reporting on the lack of transparency in this election. There have been reports of rigging as well. How do you see this entire election result? I think the results will be out by around 2 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Sure. So I think the indications or the point you mentioned about rigging and the violence, that's unfortunately something that should be expected. There isn't a whole lot of democratic transition history, as you noted. There isn't a huge history of electoral processes in place in Pakistan. So the systems of checks and balances aren't there. These types of, the maturity of the system, unfortunately, just isn't there yet. So these types of events are to be expected. Now, one of the things we've highlighted is despite the unfortunate instances around rigging or violence, that by and large, this is still a very important event. You do have a handover of government, which doesn't happen too often. The debate process or the campaigning process was fairly healthy. People know where most of these politicians or parties stand. One of the things we pointed out is our assessment going into the election was that no one party will get a majority. It's very challenging to see a majority, although we do think that the PTI is most likely favored to win. But the problem with this election comes down to, as you pointed out, who are going to be the kingmakers? And this is where PPP and the independent candidates come into play, because it all depends on who they give their backing to. So if PPP backs PTI, then you can easily see Imran Khan prime ministership. But beyond that, it's the equations post-election are what need to be focused on.
All right, we need to focus on the coalition. Shailesh, stay with us. I'd like to get in Ambassador KC Singh. Ambassador KC Singh, there's been a lot of reporting on how Imran Khan is in the driver's seat. Do you think it's completely given that his time has come?
Well, the army has been pushing him, though he denies it. In fact, he's been pushing for the last 4 years. Within 1 year of the last election, when Nawaz Sharif was Prime Minister, he mounted his Azadi March. He was questioning the verdict in 2013. So he's been sort of pushing at the outer fringes of the electoral system for the last 4 years. And he seemed to be complicit with the army since then, though they say that they have nothing to do with each other. But the dangerous thing is not so much that army is pushing him, but that he has in the past hobnobbed with right-wing forces. And so it remains to be seen, actually, the dramatic part is how does Hafiz Saeed's outfit does? Do they win? Who are the other radical elements that win, if at all? What kind of vote do they get in Pakistan? And do they join a coalition, or are they kept out?
That's right.
I would imagine the army would also be happy keeping Imran Khan on a tight leash.
Absolutely.
So they'll be happy to have him in a coalition where they can keep him, bound. But the noises he was making today about Nawaz being anti-India, because he spoke up on 26/11, all this is really uncalled for. He shouldn't have done it today. Electioneering is over. So he should have started rectifying his rhetoric. But I think he's still sending a signal to his handlers in the army that he is on board. Even if he wins, he's going to play their game. But then there's always a surprise. Even Nawaz Sharif, to start with, was a pick of the Pakistani army. Zia-ul Haq had picked him up, made him Chief Minister of Punjab. And he's the one who's never got along with the army. Nor have army chiefs picked up by Nawaz Sharif ever got along with him.
Absolutely.
So there is a systemic problem. And that is essentially the Prime Minister will try to be Prime Minister, whether it's whether Imran can be controlled or not will depend on really how much leeway the army is willing to give him, or how much wisdom he shows.
And just imagine, Ambassador KC Singh, today you had over 3 lakh army troops, Pakistan army troops, deployed across the country. Now, that was really unprecedented, and apparently it was at least 3 to 4 times the 2013 number. I'd like to get in Ambassador KC Singh, journalist, senior journalist Gul Bukhari. She's with us on the phone, and we remember her very well because she was abducted recently when the Pakistan election campaign was on. Gul Bukhari, thanks very much for speaking to CNBC TV18. I'd like to ask you about an article in The Economist and whether you agree with it at the end of the day. The true winner, according to The Economist, of the 2018 election may well be a party that is not on the ballot paper, and that will be a loss for Pakistan. Do you agree, Gul Bukhari?
Well, yes, certainly. If that party wins, it will be a loss. And we all know what it means. But I think it is still today too early, right now, at this point in time, when the vote count has started, to tell what will actually happen. We are watching the results right now. It is really very, very early. The turnout was quite good, it seems. We will have the final numbers soon. But let me tell you, I agree with Mr. Ambassador with everything that he has said. But Nawaz's voter, we saw, was very charged and very keen to come out and vote against basically, it's been seen as against the establishment. Nawaz's party does not see the competition as Imran Khan, obviously. It does not see any other political party as its competitor. It sees the establishment as its competition. And you know how many front parties it is running in this election. There is the BAP party, the Balochistan Awami Party. Then there is the Grand Democratic Alliance in Sindh. There are the independents who got that mysterious Jeep sign. And then, of course, there is the PTI. So they have a number of contestants in the field. But, you know, tonight we'll know what happens. The voters will have spoken.
Absolutely.
Let's just see. It's too early to start talking about, I think, it's too early to start talking about Imran Khan as the Prime Minister. Certainly. Even if, yes, it's too early. We don't even know whether if his party forms a Yes, it is. Even if say, for example, a few of the parties get together with PTI to form a coalition government, we still do not know whether Imran Khan will be the prime minister or not of that. But it all remains to be seen.
Okay.
The first, the party that will have the first go at forming government at the center is going to be the party with the largest number of votes. And that's what we are keenly watching right now.
All right, Gul Bukhari.
Yeah.
All right, Gul Bukhari, I'm going to request you to hold on. I'll just quickly take a cue from what you're saying and go across to Raza. Raza also, who's with us on the phone line. Raza, you've been watching this election very, very closely. Gul made an important point that PMLN, Shehbaz Sharif, is actually against the establishment. The opponent is not Imran Khan and the PTI. Do you feel that they have been fighting a losing battle all these days? I know the results are yet to be out. Counting has just begun. But what are your thoughts about this phrase that you have PMLN against the Pakistani army over here?
Well, I mean, I think whatever Gul has said, actually, I agree with her. I just want to broadly add, just for the context sake, as you rightly said in your intro, that this is Pakistan's history is, mired by military dictatorships and unrepresentative rule. It is only in the last decade that we have actually moved towards a civilian transition. And this happens to be the third election. And in a way, history is being made because in a few days, there will be a third elected government and a peaceful transfer of power. Now, there are issues with the system, with the way alignment of different power centers is concerned. But I am positively, and the fact that the PMLN is putting up a tough fight to political forces that may have official patronage is by itself a sign of change. So Pakistan and the ones in the Punjab especially are easily pliable, that you can take them to polling booths. They have a mind of their own and they're going to speak up through their vote. So regardless of whoever wins, to me, just the fact moving to a representative rule is a great sign of change.
All right. That's a good thought on which we can take a break, Raza Ahmed Rumi. I'll request all our panelists to be with us. Do not go anywhere. We'll be back after a short break and then we'll discuss what will be the impact of this election in Pakistan on India-Pakistan relations in the days to come. All right, we're discussing the impact of the Pakistan election. The Pakistani electorate has voted. Counting is on. Results could be out by around 2 a.m. tomorrow morning. Let's go back to our guests. And I'd like to put the first question to Ambassador K.C. Singh. Ambassador K.C. Singh, how would South Bloc, how would the Ministry of External Affairs and the Indian government be viewing this election?
Well, as it is, the relationship has really been at a standstill. We've had really no government in Pakistan for the last few months. Nawaz had been knocked out in May. So for about 2 or 3 months, and then there's a transitional government. But by the time the new government settles down, now if Imran comes in, it's possible, as most prime ministers do, he may start making, less radical statements. He may try to reach out. But by then, India would be going into its own election phase because, what is left of the current term of the Lok Sabha? By another 2 months, they'll be really heading towards Lok Sabha elections. So I think it's essentially South Bloc will be playing a defensive game. We have a High Commissioner there. They'll wait and see how the new Prime Minister pans out, how he reaches out, Now, one thing which is, of course, still pending is the SARC meeting. So we don't know whether India will release the hold on that and we have a SARC meeting, or we just continue till India also faces an election and then decides, watches the current government for some time. By then we have our elections and then decide after that what the next government, this government comes back or another government is there, how they want to deal with Pakistan. But at the same time, if Imran is also capable of dramatic gestures, he's a former cricket captain, he's a charismatic figure, he can carry the masses with him, but that may also invite him the opposition of the army, because army doesn't like Pakistani prime ministers to play on their own, the game with India. So I doubt if he's going to do it in the beginning. He'll start slowly. He has other things on his plate. And then also depends who his coalition members are. One point I wanted to note that in the current delimitation which has just taken place, Punjab has lost 7 seats. From 148, they've come to 141. Now what you need for a majority is 137. So from out of 148, you could get close to 137. But from 141, there's no way you can get 137. So I don't think anybody with support in Punjab like Nawaz Sharif can hope to reach a majority by just the Punjab vote. They'll have to carry other provinces with them.
Okay. Absolutely. And I'd like to get in Gul Bukhari here. We have been speaking about, and this is something that Ambassador K.C. Singh has also pointed out, that there will probably be a coalition. You'll have to rely on other smaller players also. In this election, we have seen the rise of several extremist groups. Hafiz Saeed, Milli Muslim League could not contest, but we believe at least 200 candidates backed by him and the Milli Muslim League are contesting this election. And the 2611 mastermind himself very calmly voted today. So what does this really say about the establishment and about the Pakistani election? And what kind of a role would a person like Hafiz Saeed have in the next government?
Well, it remains to be seen. Let me tell you, he has fielded 300 candidates. And we have seen him field candidates in some of the previous by-polls since September last year. And in each contest, his candidate got about, say, 7, 8, 9,000 votes. Therefore, if that pattern, and each time, in each by-poll. So therefore, I do not actually see any of his candidates in the legislature. And I believe that his party and his candidates have been fielded basically to divide the vote. So it cuts. Now, it was designed, this guy as well as the Tehreek Labbaik party, they were designed to cut away the conservative or religious vote of the N League. However, what we saw in some of the by-polls was that they ended up cutting the PTIs, especially in Peshawar. So it will be quite it will be something to see as to whose votes they have cut, whose lead they have cut eventually all over Pakistan. But, you know, with maybe even 10,000, 12,000 votes, I do not expect a single one of Milli Muslim League candidates getting into the assemblies, actually.
Okay, Gul, on that note, I'll go across to Shailesh. Shailesh has been waiting patiently. Shailesh, we have been talking about the influence of the army, and clearly the influence has been a lot, extensive on this election, on the campaign. How much room, considering that we've seen mainstreaming of extremist groups like the Jamaat-ud-Dawa, like those of Hafiz Saeed, how much room will the new Prime Minister, new government have for maneuvering when it comes to ties with India?
Yeah, not much is the simple answer. So as the ambassador a couple of points. As the ambassador pointed out, India's about to go into an election season. In my assessment, the election season began with the no confidence vote last week. And so you're in an election cycle in India unofficially. There's absolutely zero appetite on the Indian side, in my opinion, to have any discussions at the moment with Pakistan. The second point is the Pakistani civilian government has very limited autonomy when it comes to foreign policy. The only real policy matter they can control independently is probably economic policy. National security, defense, foreign policy, relations with India, relations with Afghanistan, relations with the U.S., these are all within the Army's domain. And as the ambassador also pointed out, every time you've seen a prime minister freelance and try to independently manage an India policy, he's very quickly slapped down by the Army. This is a huge risk to consider because you've seen this become very problematic in past instances where a prime minister tries to go out and do something independently, and the Army sends a signal either indirectly or sometimes, unfortunately, directly, which means a terrorist event. So I don't think that the civilian government's going to have much scope or opportunity to do anything with India. The Army simply is just not going to allow it at the moment.
Okay, Shailesh, we're running out of time. I'll put one quick question to Raza. Raza, if you can just sum this up in 15 seconds, what really is the future for Nawaz Sharif and the PMLN?
So I feel that the PMLN may lose out on forming the federal government. Of course, it's very early to say, but certainly in the last 1 year, it has emerged as a formidable party and a force to reckon with. And with Nawaz's daughter, Mariam, as a likely successor, I don't think we can wish away Nawaz Sharif that soon.
All right, Raza Ahmed Rumi, thank you very much for joining us. And we'd like to thank all our guests, Ambassador K.C. Singh, Gul Bukhari, and also Shailesh for joining us all the way from Washington, D.C. We'd like to leave you with this thought, and this is a quote from the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, which said that there are now ample grounds to doubt the legitimacy of these elections. There are alarming implications for Pakistan's transition to an effective democracy. We agree with our guests that we need to still wait for the election outcome, but the fact is the new Prime Minister, new government will have to send a very positive message about the legitimacy of this election to the global community. Thanks for watching.